Good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you this morning. Lovely to have another Thursday morning together upon our very interesting theme. I think today, very important, very interesting theme. We speak about the second truth. We speak about clinging, and we speak about the clinging, the thirst, the urge to become someone. I bet sounds pretty theoretical, and I bet it's something we can all very well relate to in a minute. But before I start, just the usual framework for those of you who are new to the sessions. Say hello to each other in this lovely chat, which is running through. Lovely to see where you're from and where you're practicing and how your morning was. Reach out to each other if you feel like you need a little virtual embrace and hug. This room is full of compassion and kindness, I find. And if you have questions and reflections, maybe even technical issues, just put it all into the chat box. I can refer to it later, because first I'm gonna share some impulses on the theme with you. Then we are going to have a meditation upon the theme, and in the end, I'm going to respond to your reflections and insights and practices and resistances, whatever comes up for you. So I'm happy to share with you. Good. And final reminder is that these sessions run on donations, and at the end you will find a link how you can potentially support Sangha Life and myself with these sessions so that they can continue to be here in the future with other teachers. Wonderful impulses for our days. Thank you. Good. Now let me see. The urge to become is the theme of our session today. You might remember that we spoke about urges, like just saying we all have healthy, natural, wonderful, appropriate wishes and desires. And sometimes these desires form out into something which has an imperative, a drive, a restlessness, a charge to it. And this is what the Buddha would call clinging then. Yeah. And yesterday we spoke about one form of clinging, tanha, which he described in the second noble truth, which he says, which is arising as a response to dukkha. And this was the tanha, the thirst, the urge of having a certain experience. Yeah, an experience I would like to have, an experience, or not wanting to have an experience, having a different experience from what there is right now, or to compensate or distract from a certain experience of dukkha, for example. Yeah, so we lost the peacefulness of this, the okayness of this moment, and the mind, the heart starts to contract around the idea of an experience we would rather have. Yeah, we would rather have than having this moment's experience. And we can notice how the mind can start to obsess around that. We can notice how the attention, our heart, our emotion, even our body starts to fragment and being pushed and pulled with that. So there's an ability to physically feel clinging. And I would be truly interested if over the course of the week you have experienced such a clinging. And it can be in the very small and nitty-gritty, as I said yesterday. It does not have to be dramatic. Yesterday I showed you the Rubik's Cube and the tanha I noticed while having this thirst, this urge to solve that rather to sleep. So that was a really minor form, an unproblematic form of tanha almost, which was very easy to soften and then let go of. Yeah, and there are other forms which are not easy to soften and let go of. So today we speak about a second form of thirst, not around having a certain sensory experience, but today the clinging we look into is called bhava tanha, and bhava basically means to be or to become. Yeah, the thirst to become or to be someone. So we look into this process of self-forming out, which is a very interesting one. We experience over the course of the day many, 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 many moments of becoming. What do I mean by that? A certain experience gives rise to a sense of, first of all, I am. Yeah. I'm always on the hunt for good practical daily life examples. So I noticed this morning, feeling the body was signaling on the breakfast table a feeling of heaviness, a feeling of tiredness still. And alternatively, what forms out of this is a sense of I am tired. Yeah. First of all, we have a bodily signal. Yeah. And then this sense of I am. Yeah. I am to be. Yeah. Links to it. I am tired. And it's very interesting when we have this almost nucleus sense of I am, this sense of presence forms out, then it's as if all kinds of attributes and characteristics and descriptions and possessions almost are magnetically pulled to this nucleus sense, like attributes and characteristics like I am like this, I am such a persona, plum added to it. And then, very interesting, as soon as we have this nucleus, further experience are referenced or are experienced in reference to this sense of I am. This is happening all of a sudden to me. And one can see how that totally makes sense and is important. The classical example of the saber-toothed tiger. If the saber-toothed tiger launches itself out of the bushes and you have not a feeling of, oh, it's attacking me, you maybe look right and you look left and you look at the tiger, and then it's too late. So it makes sense to experience and reference experience to this sense of I am to a certain degree. A habit, a natural process, a natural program, we could say, of the mind we want to explore and work with. And last thing, which this nucleus almost magnetically attracts, is to attach things and belongings. This is mine, my child, my partner, my work, my body, my emotions, my thoughts, and so on and so on. They become possessions, belongings, and a certain relationship forms with that. It says something about me and my worth potentially. It is something. If it's mine, I think I should be able to control it. I should be able to possess it and decide on ways in which I want to share them, or not share them. Or I should be able to control it. It's mine. I should be able to control it and change it if necessary. So very interesting. So we have a basic sense of I am, and then attributes and characteristics are added, experience are referenced, and a sense of mine and my is referenced to other things in the outer and the inner. And what forms out of it, I'll think of it as, first of all, there being a small nucleus, like a very soft, gentle reference point, and then you plaster around it more and more and more and more things. And what arises in its fullest form is an entire identity with a past and a present and a future. And you can see how the mind constantly plays this game of connecting the dots. This dot and that dot, and then we draw a line and almost draw a persona, from the different dots of experience we have. And there it is, identity, personality, character, whatever we think. And the problem with that, or let's say the blind spot with that, is that the assumption arises that this persona which we created is time consistent. It's not changing so much over time. Or we are, in the moment we form it, we are not aware that what we attach to it is very fluent. Like the magnetic pull comes, but it's soon enough it's replaced, or it falls away again, and it's almost like such a fluent thing, isn't it? And in the heat of the moment, we're not aware. We think that really is consistent, that persona, that identity. And we also make a second unconscious assumption that this persona maneuvers, exists, organizes itself, handles experience independently of what is going on around. And that, of course, is not true. Back to the basic example of I am tired, yeah. To say, well, I'm not independently of other things tired. I'm probably tired because there are a lot of things on the schedule and sleep hasn't been very well. And I'm not the person who sleeps badly, yeah, but we notice how that can arise out of other causes and conditions. So the sense of I am is not something which exists independently of what is going on around. That is important. And yet what the mind does is it creates like a profile. I love the idea of the wanted poster, like in the old Western movies. Like there's wanted, and then there's a very clear description with a picture. And to say the mind creates like such a poster and says, this is who I am. Yeah, this is who I am with those characteristics and those belongings. And this is clearly what I am. This is clearly who I'm not. Yeah, and having a very clear and static description of oneself. So, I do not wish to throw out the baby with the bathwater, meaning that I truly think that a certain sense of self is useful and unproblematic. As in my example with the saber-toothed tiger, there are moments where a sense of self is very healthy and I find unproblematic. Some practitioners even would need to solidify in a certain sense a healthy sense of self, yeah, before we can then look into where the sense of self creates dukkha and stress and suffering. Yeah, so that is an interesting paradox in itself. For example, where is it useful and unproblematic? I think a certain sense of self helps us to orientate ourselves and find structure in a very complex and complicated world. Yeah. We need to know where to go, what to do. We need to prioritize. We need to make meaning. We need to do all of that, yeah, in order to maneuver through this world healthy, yeah, safely, and to a certain degree happily, yeah. No, it is important. Else it would just be one experience floating through the next, and the self is the nucleus again, which helps us to orientate and structure these experiences. And in this orientation structure, this sense of self helps us to take care. Yeah, it helps us to take care of this body, heart, and mind. This selfing process, this self-referencing process, it's there, basically there to take care, yeah, of those needs, of these boundaries, of the safety and nourishment of body, heart, and mind. And thinking about it, it's very unlikely that anyone else will do a proper job because everyone has to do their job on their own, and that is hard enough. And B, no one else can properly know your needs. It's hard enough to discover our own and negotiate our own. So it's very unlikely that anyone else would do a proper job of taking care of that. So that is kind of the responsibility we are handed to. And we need some sense of self, and I find it useful as well to communicate and act. Yeah, negotiating needs, for example. So it's all good and fine. As with desires and wishes, a soft awareness of a sense of self is helpful and healthy and beautiful. Yeah. And as with the experience as well, it can overshoot. It can clearly overshoot. And I want to just a little mindful play maybe for today, just to notice how the sense of I am, or the sense of persona, or this wanted poster comes up. And just be aware, if you like, how every sense of self or every identity has also a sense of feeling tone, yeah, of feeling to it. It can be being me in different moments over the day. Whatever being me means in this moment can feel pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Yeah. And that is so interesting. The sense of self and identity has a feeling tone to it. And this is something we, of course, then respond to. Yeah. And there is another aspect which can make the sense of self potentially problematic. And this is the case because we're social beings. And as social beings, we need the others. Yeah, we need the others. And when we're with others, we want to fit in and belong. Yeah. And we, as usual, would like to predict in advance whether we will feel okay with the others or whether we feel threatened with the others. Then we'd rather not go there. Yeah. What a task to ask. Yeah. And what do? We try to measure ourselves and measure our level of fitting in and belonging by certain attributes and characteristics of our persona. Yeah. Am I a good or a bad person? And therefore, will I fit in or will I not fit in? Is this a good or a bad character trait? Will the others like it, appreciate it even? Or will they put pressure upon me because I have this? Yeah. What does being like this or like that say about me? Yeah. And you can see how out of these questions, a sense of worth and worthiness arises, which is highly chargeable. Yeah. And the next thing we do, I think humans have this natural trait also to say, I want to put myself into hierarchy with others. Yeah, the higher up the hierarchy, the safer I am with others. Yeah, the better I feel about myself. Here we're back to the quality of feeling tone of self. So we do comparison. We do comparison with others. I'm superior, I'm inferior. Am I equal? Am I at least equal to you? And try to fit ourselves into hierarchies and social structures out of a sense of wanting to feel safe, wanting to feel appreciated, etc. And the problem with that is that we derive a totally abstract sense of worth and worthiness from that. Yeah, like a form of very abstract currency. Yeah, good person, bad person. Yeah, from that, and this can lead to a lot of course, shame and a sense of guilt, etc. So here we go. There is the dukkha. Yeah, you see, the harder that gets, the abstracter that gets, the more we lean into a sense of worth and worthiness, which can be measured and then compared, the more dukkha arises from this form of tanha. And out of this wish to belong, to feel good about ourselves, to have a pleasant sense of self, clinging then arises. Yeah, with what I am right now, I'm not okay. And Bhava Tanha would most likely be this impulsive urge, this hunger, this thirst again, to create a pleasant sense of self. Where in this very moment, not okay with the persona we perceive ourselves to be. Yeah, we put together an identity, a picture of ourselves, of course, highly interpretable. And we say who I am right now is not okay or is not safe to be. Yeah, I want a different version of self in the future to arise. And we can get very obsessed by this, very focused in. Yeah, we want to change who we are. I need to work hard to become someone different. Yeah, and start to work upon that, start to obsess around that, be very, really fearful to say, as long as I'm such and such a person, I might not be accepted, I might not be liked, I might not be appreciated, etc. Or we think, if I become that person, like with those character traits, I will be highly appreciated. So I need to put everything I have in form of energy and time into that. Yeah. And of course, we try to avoid and compensate again for dukkha we're experiencing. We have a conflict with someone, yeah, and or we make a mistake, yeah, and we think this mistake says something about our sense of worthiness, and that hurts down to the bones, yeah. So many of us will try to create an identity which feels bulletproof, yeah, to say, oh, I'm going to be. I'm not going to make any more mistakes. Yeah, I'm going to avoid situations where I make mistakes because making mistakes feels so bad because it says something about my worthiness. And we try to become a person, have an identity which is, so to say, waterproof, bulletproof, whatever you prefer. And that can create an immense amount of hurt. All discussions around shame, all discussions about a chronic sense of guilt, are evolving around bhava tanha. All forms of hungering, already almost hungering for appreciation, for kind words, evolve around bhava tanha. There is some underlying belief that something is off with our sense of worthiness, something is off with our ability to be loved and belong somewhere, yeah, and therefore we need to compensate for that. And that can be pretty painful. So just to put that out in form of reaction to dukkha, and dukkha forming out of a sense of self. And maybe we can, over the course of the day, notice any wanted posters or self-descriptions arise. Very helpful, first of all, to just notice that these things arise and arise for all of us. And then to maybe be with the felt sense of it. How does it feel to have this description of self handed to us? And does it actually help me? Does it actually help me to deal with the situation at hand? Yeah. Does it add stress and dukkha to the situation at hand, or does it help me to handle the situation? And can you notice, maybe as a second idea to practice with it, can you notice any attempts to create a pleasant identity, a pleasant version of yourself, a version you feel good about? That would be it. And now let's allow these words to settle and practice with it in meditation. Find yourself a comfortable posture, please. And we can feel right into this practice right now. You, the listener, you, the person who woke up this morning with your different roles already in the morning hours. There might be an explicit or more a felt sense of self in this moment. I, who am sitting here, me. And rather than impulsively trying to let that go and dissolve that because we heard that is what Buddhists do, let's feel into that. Can you get a glimpse of a felt sense of being me this morning? Some of you will raise this question and notice, ouch, ouch, ouch. Something, a really harsh and critical view arises. Oh, here we have it going. Bhava tanha. If it hurts, if it's painful, drop the reflection, come into the body. You've seen enough. There's dukkha definitely. And after doing this reflection, we gently, softly come into something less charged, less complex than the sense of self. We just feel different parts of the body. Maybe, for example, the soles of the feet on the floor, the ground, on the mattress. We can feel the weight of the body on the cushion, the chair, maybe your hips on the mattress if you're lying. And just notice this readiness of the mind to link these experiences to a sense of self. Maybe it's like, oh yeah, my back is really hurting. I'm really uncomfortable. Or maybe it's like, I can't settle into my sitting bones. My mind is really all over the place. How all of these experiences so easily link to a sense of self. Can you notice that when it happens and saying, oh, selfing, interesting, self-reference is happening right there. And then come back to, you know what, let's keep it simple and easy, just sitting bones. Just sitting bones and maybe just unpleasantness in the sitting bones. Can you feel your hands? Maybe they lie next to you, or you have them on your lap or your thighs somewhere. Hands. If you like, you can listen for any sounds within the body or externally. And just like there are many thoughts in the beginning of a practice, a meditation session, there might just be a lot of self-referencing. That is the habit we naturally carry along. So just as the thoughts might calm down, self-referencing might calm down when we don't fuel it further in our practice. If you like to, you can spend a few moments being aware of the qualities of thoughts and thinking which are present. There too, it's very easy to self-reference. So my thinking is like this and my mind is like that. Just experiment a little what happens if you drop this connection. To allow the mind, the thoughts to be exactly how they are. And just to be aware of any linking which would indicate that these thoughts, this mind says something about who you are. You can either, like this, continue to explore different areas of your body, or to listen, to look around, and just be aware of self-reference arising. Or you might notice that there is, this morning, a stronger experience of self, feeling not okay with who you are, feeling you should be different, feeling you have to become someone, at least a good meditator. And maybe you can notice a sense of pressure or hurt, a sense of drivenness or agitation with that. Maybe you can notice some bodily resonance belonging to this drive, to this urge. It can be quite unpleasant, so be gentle and dip in only the big toe if it's quite hot and intense. When you find something like that, it might be very helpful to create a lot of space around that, as if mindfulness could create a large, large, large embrace, very spacious embrace of this urge to become, this imperative to be any different from who you are. And maybe noticing the pressure and the tightness which comes with that. And that can be enough to evoke a little bit of compassion and metta, saying, oh dear one, it's hard to be with this urge, this pressure, this drive to have to be different, to have to be more, to have to be better. Maybe embrace or nourishing that sense of spaciousness around that achy, painful place, to nourish that with a sense of softness, warmth coming from acknowledging that, yes, this is dukkha. And if it's hard to contain, hard to hold, hard to embrace, if it's spiraling up into thoughts and more pressure, please feel free to let go of it. It can be visited again and again in small portions. You can almost bow to it, acknowledge it, and then say, let me go somewhere where I can soothe, calm the heart, mind, back to the feet, back to maybe just listening, where there is less potential for self-referencing. A rest, a pause from this self-reference. And noticing the physical experience of feet, not necessarily your feet saying something about who you are. Can you just bring to this physical experience of feet some warm attention, some caring attention? It could almost be feet of someone totally different, just wishing this aspect, this part of the body well. And then shifting maybe the attention to the hands, just physical experience of hands. And bringing some warmth into the mindful awareness you're surrounding these hands with. If you feel daring, you could go to any tighter place, maybe not the most painful place within your body, but just somewhere where there's some unpleasantness. And bring that warmth, that softness, that mindful embrace there. If it helps, it could be the tightness, the tension of a loved one, a dear friend. Just be aware if you can hold it in kindness and spaciousness and care, or maybe it's too big already and the metta is grumbling, and then maybe back off again. Or whether any sense of self-reference arises towards your capacity to be kind and caring. I'm not a good metta practitioner. I'm not able to do this metta thing. Here, persona arising, to see that. To finish this practice, we make a very short visit back to our felt sense of self in this moment right now. You might notice it has softened a little bit, or it hasn't. You might notice how there is actually a scale of intensity of being me. And whatever you feel yourself to be like this moment, can you bring the awareness, the soft, gentle embrace, the spacious awareness to wherever you feel like I am? And just drop this little wish. May you be well. May you be well. Now we start to move and stretch. Yawn and sigh. Give the body some movement it needs, it wants, it appreciates. And when you feel ready, you can slowly open up your eyes and come back to the screen. So, this was a short exploration of practicing with a sense of self. It can be intense, so be kind and careful with yourself if you do that. If you had any challenging experience during the meditation, please let me know in the chat box. Any other questions you have or insights or things you didn't understand or felt resistance to, please write. So Sue makes the start. She says, in the meditation, I was reminded of teenagers I worked with as a counselor. They would often refer to my anxiety like it was a heavy box or bag they carried around, as a burden that belonged only to them. They were attached to it. I realize I have a similar attachment to thoughts and feelings that I believe define me. They affect my actions. I imagine putting the heavy box down for a while. It is not me. Beautiful, Sue. So what you write about here is we don't claim the anxiety or the feelings or the thoughts not to be there. That is not what we do. We don't dismiss them, and we don't say that they are not unpleasant. They are, yeah. And out of this fact that they are there and they are unpleasant, and not knowing how to relate to them properly, because they are like an itch. They draw our attention to them quite a bit, yeah. We easily make them mine. And if they're mine, I have to take care of it. I have to solve it. They define me. There's something about my worthiness. We have cultural images all over who you are. If you are a person with anxiety, that says something about your worthiness and your ability to put yourself somewhere here in the hierarchy, and so on. So this small connection, the small word of my, yeah, that comes, it is loaded and loaded and overloaded with a lot of layers and things. And to allow them to put down the my, yeah, and it is not me, as you said, Sue, is usually a huge relief, because all of that which is added on in the relating to these experiences, it's gone for a while, yeah. And we can then experiment with other ways to relate to it, and that's what we did do when we practice metta practice. We try to form a new relationship, yeah. We try to form a new relationship with it. We're saying it's not describing me, but I can care for it, yeah. The pain of your friend is not describing you most of the time, but you would care for it anyways, yeah. And this is kind of what we do with the Brahma-Vihara practices. We create new ways to relate. So thank you, Sue, for finding that and putting that out. Thank you. Ruth is writing, had a very constricted thought belief arise. He hates me. Then dropping the me, I saw just the hatred. Yes. Then I saw the aversion. Then I saw the suffering behind the aversion. Nothing to do with me. And I was able to turn towards the suffering. It was so powerful. Thank you, Ruth. And that is beautifully done. Yeah. There is another one in conflict with you. Yeah. And that happens in life. It happens when we sometimes make hard decisions and others are not okay with them. And the others might even think they hate us. Yeah. But to deconstruct that just as beautifully as you did, to say the me, the other constructed, it's not there. Yeah, it's their perception, just their perception of us. Just like we have a nucleus of ourselves and things adding to that, others have images of us and things adding to that. They have their wanted posters of us. Yeah, and this is where the anger and the aversion is going to. And you saw that just in the moment you realized that, you were able to reconnect with the suffering in the other. Yeah. And yeah, that is quite an insight. Thank you. So Karen is sharing, "Not me, not mine" is a phrase I find useful. Yeah, yeah. This is not who I am. This is not me. This is not mine. Can be a very helpful phrase to remember. Of course, there's a limit to that as well. If you are having some sort of impulses and are in conversation with someone, and someone comes, "Oh, I'd rather have you not, I don't know, leave your dirty socks on the floor every morning," and you respond to the good person, "This is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am," you will be definitely getting into trouble. So here's a middle way to find as well, yeah, between when is this phrase or this practice we just did helpful, and when will it cause and respond to more dukkha. Beautiful. Thank you, Kevin. Maureen is writing, "In some moments I'm able to separate myself from anxiety and judgment about my ability to handle a task in what feels like a heavy way. And at other times it feels more like a dissociation, a denial of what I'm feeling, and a way to procrastinate dealing with a difficult task. This is usually in relation to work. I'm not sure if what I mean is clear here. It's a feeling that I have that I'm trying to find a way to express." Yeah. Sometimes if we go into denial and if we go into "I'd rather not see, I'd rather do something, anything," yeah, the sense of self can be so inflamed, so hurtful, so pushy, so demanding that we can't even go close to that. Yeah. It might cause some very impulsive, very strong reactions to it. And to just acknowledge, to say, full on touching upon the sense of self is too much at the moment. Can I find, just as we did in meditation practice, things, moments, experience, anything which have less potential to cause further painful self-reference? Yeah, and to rest and to calm in that, to say, okay, I'm going to, I don't know, what I usually do is dig something up in the garden. Yeah, having put my hands into the earth, and I notice there is much less potential for self-reference there. Yeah, but just short story on the side. I have done meditation retreats where I have had tasks handed to me. I think one meditation retreat I had to get out the blackberries behind the kuti I was practicing in, and I was noticing how hard I was working. Yeah, and up arose the thought, I want to be the person who is appreciated for getting out all the brambles. Yeah, and noticing, wow, even during meditation retreat, the sense of self in hands-on work can arise. So we need to be skillful with that. So Laura's sharing, during the meditation, I realized that instead of focusing on how I must behave, I have been focusing on trusting the life flow arising to guide me lately. Yeah, thanks to our practice. Beautiful, beautiful, Laura. Yeah, that is important. It's not that we stop caring without a sense of self. I think that is what we often think, that if I loosen up, even soften just a little bit the sense of self, we stop to care and we stop to bring in our good qualities. But I think what actually can arise is a more situative, a more moment to moment to moment response to the situation. Out of this time consistent framework of self, we drop out of it a little bit and we ask, what does this moment need? And what does this moment need? And what does this moment need? Yeah. Anya is writing, I find it really difficult to really feel the difference between a healthy sense of self and the point where it gets problematic. Yeah, Anya, definitely not an easy one. I just point back to the 4 categories here. I find them really helpful to start. To say, am I okay? Timeliness. Am I okay with the persona which is there right now? Is there a sense of okayness? I do not have to celebrate it. I do not have to think it's perfect. Yeah, but is there a sense of okayness? What was the second? Is there a form of obsession? Anything like obsessing, always coming back to that nickel, to that worthiness, to that, yeah, is it collapsing on an aspect of self, like Sue said about my anxiety, something like that. The other one is to think into the future, saying, oh, it would be perfect, I would be safe, I would be totally, oh, nothing could happen to me if I were just that person. Yeah, and finally, this fourth category of this fragmentation, this drivenness, this urge, this inability to root and settle and be grounded. Maybe these four categories, Anya, are helpful here as well. Claire is writing, feeling of stress and deep concern when my child is struggling can completely take over. Yeah, they can. This practice shown awareness on these vibrations and they completely soften for a while, and sending well wishes was lovely. Beautiful, Claire. Thank you. Yeah, I think, look at that. That is dukkha, provoking a sense of self. Yeah, the child is suffering, and sometimes the children's suffering, isn't it? Is extremely hard for parents to just be with that, especially if you can't do much around it or have done what is possible to be done around that. And then to see that how out of this sense of there is a loved one struggling, yeah, we can't almost not drop into compassion, because self arises and self says, okay, we need to do something. So self-construct brings up new plans and goes into the past and does and does, yeah, out of being triggered by this sense of dukkha there. And once we can touch into compassion, really touch into compassion, saying, loved one, I see you're suffering and I wish you from the bottom of my heart all the best. That self-construct comes to rest, and that can bring some ease and some true depth into the compassion practice. Beautiful. Thank you, Claire, for sharing. Okay. As I see no more written things at the moment, thank you for everything you shared and your trust and your kindness with the community. Tomorrow we're going to talk about something which might sound similar, which is the urge to unbecome. Yeah, like a backlash towards a strong sense of wanting to be someone. We have sometimes this urge, this wish not to be anything, anyone, not to be that person, that having that role anymore. And you might feel familiar to that as well. I will take Caroline's question, which just came up, into our session for tomorrow and respond to that. And wish to thank you so much for coming today. And wish you a beautiful day. Maybe practice a little bit with the suggestions. Noticing it once or twice would be beautiful. And then we see each other tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here.